I hope this presentation goes okay. My morning has gotten off to a little sour start. When I woke up this morning and started getting dressed, I found out I left all my ties back in Richmond. And so I'm using a borrowed tie from Jim Campbell. I think he said something about he would rent it for about $200 million. So I think it's probably got a meter on it. I was asked to talk a little bit about where we are in terms of just the finances at the state level, with some indications about what to look forward to in terms of budget strategies and pressures, and we'll try to cover that. I've got a number of slides. I think I'm supposed to speak for about 20 minutes, so I'm going to have to go through this pretty quickly, and you know, if we get hung up on anything, perhaps you can get that in the question and answer period. Let us begin by looking at sort of where we've been in terms of getting ourselves ready to look at the future. Where we've been is revenues, general fund at the state level, sort of collapsed after December. If you look at this line, you can see that we had projected a negative 7.3% for general fund revenue last fiscal year, FY09. It came in at 9.2% minus, about a 2% differential, $300 million shortfall. As you can see, we were running well ahead of that forecast through about December of last year, and then it collapsed. As we were in the early fall months, our biggest source of revenue, withholding on the income tax, was still growing at about 6% through August. So there was sort of contradictory signs about whether we were sort of bucking the nation in this recession. You know, how well would we fare? And then the big collapse came, starting with January, a whole series of negatives. The other thing I like to point out about this slide is you look at across the bottom, you can see monthly revenue growth, and this packet is in. You can follow in is on your seat. There's a handout. So this will be on page 1 of that handout. If you look at across the bottom, on the month by month, you see that the only positive month in FY09 was July. I was appointed secretary in August, so I have almost a perfect track record of losing money. And, I would like to see that change before you know, maybe we can go out of office, but I'm not sure it's in the cards. You can look at big drivers, payroll minus 1% versus that 6% increase I was talking about in the first half of the year. So it really was a, you know, sort of a tale of two cities. Growth through December, all negatives after that, and fairly broad-based in every source. Given where we were at with $300 million shortfall, the governor brought in the advisory boards to look at revenue estimates, look at the economy, and to reassess that, and the assumptions that we are operating on in an August reforecast of general fund revenues of these. Global Insight is a national forecasting firm. There's two big national forecasting firms, Global Insight and economy.com, moodyseconomy.com. Both of them see fairly similar scenarios at this stage. But back in the summer, the consensus forecast was that real GNP would begin slowly to grow in the second half of 2009. And we saw 2 weeks ago where the announcement, positive GNP growth, and technically that put it into the recession. So that is happening, at least in that assumption. The labor markets, however, a whole different story. They did not see job growth reoccurring until late in 2010. And I think that's sort of the story of this technical recovery. It is going to be a jobless recovery for some time to come. And when you think about the state, 60% of its take coming from withholding on the general fund side, this is not, you know, the kind of picture that you want to see. Global Insight also sees personal income growth to slow further in 10, that is not bottom out in 09, continue in 10, and no signs of a robust consumer recovery. Consumption makes up about 60% of real GNP. Without robust consumer presence in the economy, it's almost difficult to have a V-shaped recovery. This is the one factor that leads to sort of slow growth out in the out years, and I'll come back to that theme as we go back to these slides. In the housing market, continued drag, but sort of bottoming out at this stage of the game, and some of our statistics seem to say that at least this trend is occurring at this stage of the game. When we look at the financial sector, there's no forecast for the stock market volatility that you have in the past. Some of this stabilized. However, there will be tight credit for some time to come among the banks. With this forecast in mind, you can see what it does to the economic variables. And the economic variables I look at are primarily employment and wages and salaries, because they're the components of personal income that drive revenues in the state. And if you look at what's happening, look at 10, you see in employment where the forecast in the budget was about 0.2% decline. That has gone down to 1.8%. On wages, again, 3.2% growth down to 1.3% growth. So what has happened is the U has gotten, in terms of the recovery, has gotten deeper in the trough. It's gotten a little wider across before the bounce back. That is primarily where we're at today. When the governor's advisors looked at this, the Advisory Board of Economists, and VACo stands for the Governor's Advisory Council on Revenue Estimates, CEOs of top businesses in Virginia, legislative leaders like Senator Colgan. When we looked at this forecast, the Board of Economists advised, at least with the outlook for employment, that we should be very pessimistic on the withholding side of the equation. The Governor's Advisory Council on Revenue Estimates also said that they thought without any pickup in consumer spending, so to speak, that we ought to be very pessimistic on sales tax. So in the interim forecast that was done in August, about 80% of the revenue between personal income and sales tax was really pegged at a very pessimistic forecast of the economy. And that led to a situation where we had $300 million shortfall, real in 2009, but paring back the budgetary forecast for FY10 by about $1.2 billion. Now, if you put that together, it's about, with transfers, it's about $1.5 billion loss over the course of the biennium. There was about 150, a little excess of 150 in balances left in the budget. So we ended up with about a $1.35 billion problem to solve, and that's what the governor's plan in August did. When you look at this over a sort of a time series of where we've been, that 1.5 in August, based on where we started from in the summer of '07